We've been going through the PFF rankings for the last week. We did running backs. We did wide receivers. We did defensive line last Friday. Today we get into the secondary.
Yep.
So let me preface it with this. PFF has assumed who the 5 starters are going to be, and they've ranked them as such.
Okay.
Now, these are the 5 that they have for the Vikings, and I'm not sure I agree. Maybe long-term, but I don't know about week 1 or even for most of the season.
Well, here, I'll give you the 5 I think, and then you tell me. So I got Harrison Smith. I got Lewis Seen. I got Andrew Booth Jr. I got Patrick Peterson, and then Shannon Sullivan.
Okay, so you have 4 or 5. You correctly have Lewis Seen. You correctly have Andrew Booth Jr. However, they do have Cameron Dantzler instead of Shannon Sullivan. My question is on this, do we know Andrew Booth is a nickel? Because that's what they have Andrew Booth as. And I thought he was an outside guy, and I figured that's what he would be trained as because you have Shannon Sullivan. That's your nickel this year. So I don't know if I love those 5, but okay, those 5, Peterson, Dantzler, Booth, Smith and Seen. Where do you think that stands in the NFL?
Well, one for Andrew Booth, I think, and this could just be them doing what their investigations. Another corner from the outside at Clemson became a nickel, which was Mackenzie Alexander. So that could just be an error of ways of saying like, oh yeah, Clemson, they put their corners, but he is a smaller corner. He is not smaller, sorry. He is a like an Antoine Winfield senior type of body. But I think what is he, 6 feet? I can't remember.
I got his page up right here. 6 feet, 195.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so 6 feet, not a small, but not a 6'2" Patrick Peterson type. So at 6 feet, can be considered, and that's like, again, it's not a small person at 6 feet. That's a normal, average corner size. But at that size, when you look at him, he doesn't look 6 feet. And so in their mind, they're like, look, this guy gets probably, he can move well, move his hips. He can be a nickel guy. He can cover slots. He's fast. He's young. And I think maybe that's the thought process in this. You don't draft a guy and have a drafted Cameron Dantzler as well and try not to get production out of both of them. I think it's Shannon Sullivan to start and then maybe work Lewis or Booth in, leave Booth on the outside, Cameron Dantzler and him trading out because that becomes, not saying embarrassment of riches, but it becomes a bunch of corners that could start. But look, we're going to work you guys in and also get Patrick Peterson off every once in a while. Let him get a breather. At his age, you don't want him to burn out early in the season as well. Like if there's opportunities where you can get him off the field, like if it's a running down or something like that, like, yeah, get him off. Like bring in one of these young corners to do it, give them a quick breather. But if that's their 5, and they don't have Shannon Sullivan in, the veteran, I'm going to guess if there's 6 in tier 1 again, 6 in tier 2, and that 5-some, I still personally would put them in tier, you know what? Because you got the Steelers. I'm going to go tier 2. I think the Vikings fall in tier 2. That's just where they've been putting them. They respect Harrison Smith. They love Patrick Peterson. They think Lewis Seen is a beast. I'm going to say right at the top of tier 2.
All right. So starting with tier 1, this is what they call, where do offenses even attack? Because they're so good. They have actually 8 of these. The Vikings are not in tier 1.
Wow.
The Vikings are not in tier 1. So the Packers are, unfortunately. Number tier 2, which they call minor question marks. There are 6 teams, and the Vikings are not in that group either.
Okay.
They are in tier 3, which they define as ascending units. Okay. And within that, the Vikings are ranked 18th. Here's the description. The Vikings have quite a dichotomous mix of veteran talent with rookie top 50 picks. The biggest worry, though, is age. Once considered elite players at their respective positions, can 33-year-old Harrison Smith and 32-year-old Patrick Peterson still be relied upon? And then, hey, it's full circle, Ron. Comes back to segment 1. We agree that Harrison Smith can be relied upon. What do you think about Patrick Peterson?
Well, it's funny to hear the ages because you would assume Patrick Peterson is older than Harrison Smith because he acts so much like, you know what I mean? Like he just operates, moves around older.
Yeah,
like
he's been in the league longer too. Yep.
Yeah, it feels like, and that's probably part of it, but he just feels older. It feels like he's an older guy than Harrison Smith. Like I would have put Harrison Smith, like if I did not know, I would have put Harrison Smith at like 30 and put Patrick Peterson at 32, 33. Like that's what's so funny to me is Harrison Smith being 33 and Peterson being 32. And granted, that's a long time in the NFL. Like the average year is 3.5 years is what 3.4, I think is what they say. And so when you think about that, and these guys are hitting on year 10, 11, at their age, a lot of people just say 34, 35. It's kind of like you're just getting by, getting checks now. Like, are you really performing? Are you really helping out? And that's what we're going to see this year. How much does like Patrick Peterson is not, we know that he's not the shutdown guy he used to be when he was a Pro Bowler, in year 1, 2, and 3. But he's still an athlete. He still can run. We saw that. How can Ed Donatello help him out? Is it a lot more zone coverage now? When you have a lot of young bodies, do you bring those guys in to run man press every once in a while and give him a breather, get him off the field? So 18 seems low to me, but maybe that's just because I'm older. So I'm looking at the Harrison Smiths and the Patrick Petersons and saying how good I know they were. And that is me being a little older, being a little bit more nostalgic to what they've been for the NFL. Looking at Lewis Cine again, playing in the national championship at Georgia, watching some of his highlights, seeing Andrew Booth Jr. play man coverage at Clemson, watching what he did on film. Maybe that's why I'm a little bit bullish on him, but that's where they put him at 18th. I get it.
You got to like that they have, I think, 3 safeties that are exciting. You've got Bynum and Cine and Smith, and then you've got an extra corner or 2 that are pretty exciting. With whether Andrew Booth is on the bench or starting, you still have corners that are veterans that you can trust. So there's better depth this year. If they were ranking the units as a whole with the depth included and not just picking 5, I feel like the ranking would have been higher, Ron.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, again, we don't know what Chandon Sullivan really is. It almost feels like when players commit to like a big school, and then they all of a sudden turn around and commit to, another school. Like, I mean, we've seen it in Minnesota. Seth Green committed to Oregon. He was a 4-star. He commits to, he decommits and then commits to Minnesota. They knock him down to a 3-star. So I feel like a lot of times certain teams, like depending on the player and the situation, I feel like there was a lot of respect for Mike Zimmer's defensive backs. Like, I think Mike Zimmer, if he still was the defensive backs coach or coordinator even for the Vikings, they might raise him up a little bit higher too. Like, Mike Zimmer got a lot of respect from the NFL just because of how Deion Sanders talked about him and how, so many of his DBs became top guys. When you look at Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes going to get money, Anthony Harris, he put a lot, Sandejo, a lot of guys still got to go on and play and make money after, they were coached up by Mike Zimmer. And so when you think about that, and then Patrick Peterson, that was one of the reasons why he said he came originally. Now he's like, no, I just like the team. So, I think there's a little bit there too. This 3-4 defense, nobody knows, but again, age, I get it. When you go with age, you always say that. We said the same thing about Tom Brady and he won the Super Bowl.